Colin Cowherd gets super disrespectful to Jalen Brunson, and I'm here to break it all down. All that and much more on the Knicks Digest. What's up, guys? It's your boy Dariel from Knicks Digest. It's been a while, but I'm back. All right, man, I'm getting right into it. Colin Cowherd straight up talked about Jalen Brunson and how if he was in a Western Conference, he would not be having this type of playoff run. Colin Cowherd, first and foremost, you're gonna make me get real New York on you. You heard? Yo. What he was saying was absolute blasphemy. Now, I understand that the Indiana Pacers, they're not this juggernaut of a defensive team. I get it. They have one way of playing. They don't know how to slow anybody down. And it's the playoffs. You expected them to be a lot more better defensively. But to say that Jalen Brunson would not be doing this in a Western Conference is, in the words of Stephen A., it's absolute blasphemy. The leaps and bounds that Jalen Brunson has taken as far as just being an overall player, the skills, the talent, the footwork, he's gotten better since day one, since he got into the NBA. And since Colin Cowherd brought up all these different teams that Jalen Brunson wouldn't be doing this good against, he brought up the Oklahoma City Thunder, he brought up the Dallas Mavericks, he brought up the Denver Nuggets, he brought up the Minnesota Timberwolves. By the way, that Denver and Minnesota Timberwolves series is absolutely insane. I got Denver in 7 on Sunday, but that's a video and that's a topic for another day. I did a little homework and I went into the archives and I looked at Jalen Brunson's stats against each of those teams. Now, the first team up, we're talking about the Dallas Mavericks. Take a look here. Jalen Brunson had 30 points, 8 assists, and 2 rebounds in that one game against the Dallas Mavericks. And to dive a little bit deeper in that game, he was 10 of 22 from the field, which is 45.5%. He was 2 of 6 from three-point line, which is 33.3%. And again, that's definitely an area of opportunity that Jalen Brunson can get better at. But Jalen Brunson, what he's able to bring to the table is not just three-pointers. He's able, with his basketball IQ, he's able to manipulate the defense. And his mid-range game, I might start saying that he's the mid-range killer. I've been saying that DeMar DeRozan for the last few years has been an absolute tear in the mid-range. But Jalen Brunson, man, just the way that he's been playing, not only this season, but in this playoff run, he's been making his defenders look absolutely stupid. I mean, Andrew Nembhard, do we really have to have a conversation about how he was just straight up cooking Andrew Nembhard? And he did make Nesmith touch earth the last game with a simple in and out. It was a simple in and out dribble move, and he made Nesmith touch earth. He is absolutely baptizing the defenders that he has in front of him. But going back to that Dallas Mavericks game, again, 30 points, 8 assists, and 2 rebounds, 10 of 22 from the floor, 45.5%. And again, let's take a look at the defenders that were probably on Jalen Brunson. Luka Doncic was definitely not on Jalen Brunson because they were trying to preserve his energy. They were trying to preserve his playing minutes. They didn't want to get him into foul trouble. So who did they put on Jalen Brunson? It was probably a mixture of Tim Hardaway, and the game was on January 11th, which is before the trade deadline. So PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, those players weren't there yet. So I'm trying to think of the Dallas Mavericks team before the trade deadline. I know Tim Hardaway Jr. was there, Kleber was there, Josh Green, I believe the second-year player was there, Kyrie was obviously there. But it was probably a mixture of different players, and Tim Hardaway Jr. was probably put on Jalen Brunson at a certain point in the game, because if there's one thing that Jalen Brunson has a little bit trouble with, a little bit, not even a lot, but just a little bit, is length and height. I don't know why these teams and these coaches have not really tried to take advantage of that. Philadelphia in the first round, Nick Nurse, I don't really remember them putting the Kelly Oubre's, Buddy Hield wasn't even a factor in the series, I think, until the last game. And we got Philly out of here. Rick Carlisle in this series. TJ McConnell has been the best player to hold down Jalen Brunson. They've had Andrew Nesmith on him, I believe, who's like 6'4", 6'5", or maybe even 6'6". So kudos to Rick Carlisle. And Andrew Nesmith has had the best outing against Jalen Brunson, but he's still cooking Nesmith. Okay, so now going back to what Colin Cowherd had to say. Now the second team he brought up was the Oklahoma City Thunder. And take a look here at his numbers. 27 points, 7 assists, and 3 rebounds in 2 games against the Thunder. So now if we dive deeper into those stats, those 2 games were held on December 27th and March 31st. So the first game, December 27th, Jalen Brunson was 9 of 19 from the field, 47.4%. Three-point land, he was 1 of 5, which is 20%. Not great. Free throws, he was 5 of 5, 100%. The second game against the Thunder, which was on March 31st, Jalen Brunson was 11 of 25 from the field, 44%. 4 of 11 from three-point land, 36.4%. 4 of 8 from free throw, 50%. So in the 2 games, he was from 44 to 47% from the field. you're really close to 50% from the field. Those stats are really jumping out at me. Again, the 3-point numbers, that's not Jalen Brunson's bread and butter. Jalen Brunson is more of a cerebral player. He understands that whatever is working for him, he's going to stick with that. But now let's talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder team. That Thunder team are going again right now in the series against Dallas. I haven't really been able to watch a lot of it, but I love SGA. I love how he's developed, how he's raised his game, and he's another mid-range killer. DeMar DeRozan, Jalen Brunson, SGA, I'm sure there's another player that I can't think of right now, but those 3 players are at the top of the list as far as mid-range assassins. But the Oklahoma City Thunder, let's take a look at some of the defenders that they were probably going to put on Jalen Brunson. You got Lou Dort, you got Cason Wallace. Josh Giddey was probably on Jalen Brunson at a certain point in those games, probably not a lot. SGA was probably put on Jalen Brunson for a little bit of those games, but the same thing like Luka, they were trying to preserve his energy, they were trying to preserve his playing time. They didn't want him to pick up quick fouls, so he probably wasn't matched up with Jalen Brunson a lot of the time. But SGA, 6'6" point guard, athletic, taller. If SGA was matched up against Jalen Brunson, you would probably think that Jalen Brunson would have a hard time against SGA. But you take a look at the numbers. First game, 47.4% from the field. Second game, 44% from the field. I mean, what are we talking about here? And now let's look at the next team. The next team is the Denver Nuggets. Now, the next 2 teams, the Denver Nuggets and the Timberwolves, Minnesota Timberwolves, Jalen Brunson's stats aren't going to jump out at you like the first 2 teams, Dallas and Oklahoma City Thunder. But against the Denver Nuggets in the 2 games, he averaged 23.5 points, 6.5 assists, 1.5 rebounds. Now, to dive deeper into those numbers, those 2 games, the first one was held on January 25th and the second one was on March 21st. The first one on January 25th, Jalen Brunson was 7 of 10 from the field, which is 70%. That's pretty crazy. 3-point land was 1 of 2, 50%. The second game, March 21st, he was 11 of 23 from the field, 47.8%. 3-point land, he was 2 of 7, which is 28.6%. The second game, his free throws was 2 of 3, which is 66.7%. And the first game on January 21st, 6 of 6 free throw line, 100%. Now, the first game is kind of interesting because we're looking at the field goals. He was 7 of 10. He only had 10 field goal attempts. I'm not sure exactly what that was about. It says that he played 27 minutes, so it's not like he had maybe a nagging injury that kept him out for the rest of the game. So I'm not sure exactly why his field goal attempts for that game was so low. But the second game, 23 attempts, that sounds like a regular Jalen Brunson game. 47.8%, 50%. And the Denver Nuggets, let's talk about their team. Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. So the 2 players that have come to mind right away, Michael Porter Jr., Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Actually, you know what? Let's throw Jamal Murray in there as well. Those 3 players, they're all taller than Brunson. They all have a little bit more girth to Brunson. And Jalen Brunson shot 70% from the field in the first game, 47.8% in the second game. Colin Cowherd. The numbers I'm giving you right now for Jalen Brunson are teams that are still in the playoffs. These aren't irrelevant teams in the Western Conference that are not even a part of the playoffs, that didn't even make the play-in. They are still in the playoff contention. So I don't know what the hell you're talking about as far as Jalen Brunson not being able to do this against Western Conference teams. You better watch your mouth, you heard? Because if you ever show your face in New York, it's going to be problems, you heard? And now the last team on this list is the Minnesota Timberwolves. So in 2 games, Jalen Brunson averaged 20.5 points, 10 assists, and 4 rebounds in the 2 games against the T-Wolves. Again, diving deeper into those numbers. The first game was held very early in the season, November 20th, and the second game was on January 1st. So on November 20th, Jalen Brunson was 7 of 15 from the field, 46.7%, 3 of 6 from three-point line, 50%, love that. Free throw attempts, he was 8 of 8, 100%, love that. January 1st, the second meeting between the Knicks and Timberwolves, Jalen Brunson was 5 of 23, not great, 21.7%. Three-point land was 1 of 9, not great, 11%. 5 of 5 from free throw land. That second game on January 1st against the Minnesota Timberwolves, that's definitely one of the stats that Colin Cowherd could probably throw at us. And it states that he played 41 minutes, so he played a majority of the game. And the Minnesota Timberwolves, if you've been watching the series against the Denver Nuggets, the first 2 games, the Minnesota Timberwolves in Denver absolutely put the clamps on everybody on Denver. And they have Jaden McDaniels, they have Anthony Edwards, they have Nickeil Alexander Walker, I believe his full name, Kyle Anderson. Like the bodies, the length that Minnesota Timberwolves have, is no wonder why the Denver Nuggets started off struggling against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Because when the Minnesota Timberwolves, when they put their minds to it, we've seen it time and time again in this series against the Denver Nuggets. When they put their minds to it and they want to play defense, they're playing elite defense. They're playing defense that is like historical defense compared to like the 80s Pistons, compared to the 90s Bulls. And I know the sample size isn't much. We only have maybe like 3.5 games to show whenever Minnesota Timberwolves actually feel like playing defense. But in this game, I'm pretty sure that they went into the game thinking like, we're just going to absolutely shut Jalen Brunson down. And by the numbers, it's pretty evident they did. 23 field goal attempts, and he only hit 5 of his shots, 21.7. That is probably the worst stat. That is probably the worst field goal percentage that I've talked about in this video. So I know this video was a lot of stats. I know it was a lot of numbers, but all in all, that take that Colin Cowherd had was absolute insane. It was absolutely ridiculous. Saying that Jalen Brunson is going up against the Indiana Pacers is basically why he's having a huge second round of the playoffs. Like, that's so reductive. Like, you can't just say that about a player who's been showing you all season, not even all season, who's been showing you since he got here to the Knicks that he can put a team on his back, lead us into the playoffs, have a great historical run, and get us past the first round. What Knicks player has done that in the past? Consistently. Carmelo Anthony only did it once. And ever since the Patrick Ewing Knicks, who have we had to do that for the New York Knicks organization? I'll give you a minute. Exactly. There's nobody. And also, it's not Jalen Brunson's fault that the Indiana Pacers is a team that he matched up with. If the Milwaukee Bucks actually gelled as a team, if they actually built chemistry between Giannis and Dame Lillard, now I understand that the injuries did play a part of it. Giannis, I think he strained his calf like literally the last or second to last game of the season, which caused him to miss the first round. And Damian Lillard strained his calf as well, and maybe like game 2 or 3 of that series. But if you take a look at the Milwaukee Bucks prior to the playoffs starting, they were completely up and down the entire season. They fired Adrian Griffin with a record of 30-13. They didn't like the way the team was going, the chemistry, they didn't like the way the team was flowing. Now, if the injuries never happened, and if the Milwaukee Bucks actually took care of business, then maybe Colin Cowherd wouldn't have this take about Jalen Brunson going up against the Indiana Pacers. He probably would be seeing Jalen Brunson torch the Milwaukee Bucks, but we're not going to be able to prove that because that's never going to happen. We'll see if Dame and Giannis, they stay together for another season. All in all, Colin Cowherd, if you show your face in the New York streets, it's about to be a problem. You heard? Everybody at MSG, if they see your face at the Garden, just trying to take in what Jalen Brunson has been doing for this Knicks organization, everybody is going to be on your head. We're going to start chanting some real bad things in the Garden. We're going to start to make you feel uncomfortable. Don't ever say anything like that ever again. We don't want to hear anything like that coming out of your mouth again. You heard? That's it for today's video, guys. Leave it in the comments. Let me know what you guys thought about Colin Cowherd's blasphemy of a take. And until next time, you know the drill, you know the vibes. Taj Gibson for president, wherever you are. You're probably in Aruba, Cancun, and Dominican Republic, just enjoying the sun. Respect to you. Salute to you. Jalen Brunson for all the MVPs. The deuce is loose. And until next time, guys, I'll check you out in the next video. Peace.